Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, we're going to do a bit of a flying lesson. Since we have just acquired Elytra in our previous episode, we got these wings on our backs now, and I think it's important to know, before you start flinging yourself around the sky of your Minecraft world, how to control them, how to take off safely, how to land safely, how to fly around in style, and how Elytra can help you get into some places which you couldn't before without special equipment. So without further ado, we're going to grab some emeralds and a book, and we're going to head over to my mending villager, because the first thing you need to learn is how to take care of these things, and that is going to come in the form of making sure your Elytra has unbreaking and mending. Because as I mentioned in the previous video, each second you fly with your Elytra decreases the durability on your Elytra by 1 point. So mending is going to be pretty much essential to make sure that the wings don't end up breaking. We've got to have that so that we can repair them, and unbreaking, if we have it. I believe I have an Unbreaking 3 book back at my base. Unbreaking 3 is effectively going to make sure that 3 out of 4 times our Elytra might lose durability, it doesn't. So the Elytra can potentially last 4 times as long. Even though we'll have mending on them so we can repair them using XP, it's important to mend them as infrequently as possible to get the most out of them. So we're going to be enchanting our Elytra with both mending and unbreaking, which you can't do in an enchantment table, unfortunately. You can only do that using a book, but unbreaking and mending are the only enchantments that really apply to Elytra. If you don't have any mending books yet, however, there is still hope for you, because if we look in one of these hoppers, there we go, that's where I left them, phantom membranes are actually the repair material for Elytra. So when you've stayed up late and killed a couple of phantoms, keep hold of the phantom membrane in case you need to do any emergency repairs. This is only really a short-term solution though, since the cost for repairing an item like this will go up every time you make a repair, and Elytra durability wears out pretty fast. They only have 432 durability, they can't be upgraded to increase the durability, there is no netherite Elytra or anything, so despite the fact that it's an additional expense here, mending is going to make sure that our Elytra permanently stays durable. Oh, and there goes my anvil. Yep, so we're going to have to make another one of those. As I mentioned in the previous episode, if your Elytra does run out of durability, you don't have to worry about it disappearing from your inventory the way that your tools do. Instead, the wings will simply become tattered, you'll be unable to fly with them once they reach 0 durability, but they will not disappear, so you can always return, repair them with phantom membrane, or mend them using XP. Provided, of course, that you haven't fallen out of the sky and died of fall damage somewhere, so that's another thing to be concerned about. Keeping an eye on the durability of your Elytra while you're flying around is important. So that's the safety briefing part out of the way. Now let's get on to how we actually use these things. And we're going to start off simply by gliding using the Elytra, but we'll end up flying with them shortly. And it's important to note there is a difference between those two things. Fortunately, from the back of my storage building here, I can kind of jump up onto the side. Maybe we'll knock out a couple of blocks here so that we can get over towards the front. And from over here, we have a slightly steeper drop in front of us, so that's the perfect place to learn to use our wings. If you simply jump off of this, you're going to fall the way you normally do. The trick to activating your Elytra is to press jump a second time while you're in mid-air. So I'm going to jump off the top of this, press the spacebar, and I start gliding. Now, as you point yourself downwards towards the ground, you'll pick up some speed but lose height. Turning in the air decreases any acceleration you might have had and is usually the key to a safe landing. Because if you simply point yourself downwards at the ground, you're going to accelerate the entire way and you're going to take some fall damage pretty quickly. The speed at which you are traveling increases the amount of damage you're going to take. And falling wearing a set of wings is still falling. So that's something to bear in mind. You need to make sure that you are slowing down as you come to land to make a safe landing. So that's the gliding part pretty much covered. The next thing we need to do is talk about flying, and for that, we're going to need to make some firework rockets, and I'll need to remember where I've stashed a bunch of my gunpowder. Here we go. We'll bring a stack of gunpowder, and I'll head over to my sugarcane farm where we should have plenty of sugarcane ready to be made into paper. Now, we've made fireworks in the past. We've made them in connection with crossbows, and being able to use explosive fireworks as a weapon. The key to Elytra flight using fireworks is to not make the explosive kind of fireworks. Flight rockets are simply made by turning a bunch of sugarcane into paper and combining paper and gunpowder in a crafting interface. These have a flight duration of 1, but you'll notice they don't have any kind of firework star effect. Firework stars are the ones that you make with gunpowder and any sort of dye, and then adding that to the rocket crafting recipe with gunpowder and paper produces an explosive rocket, but those will damage you if you use them to fly around. And you'll notice that the firework rockets I've crafted have a flight duration of 1. There is a way that you can make rockets with a slightly longer flight duration, which simply increases the amount of time they boost you through the air before you're just left to glide from that point onwards. To make each of those types of fireworks, we simply need to increase the amount of gunpowder we add to the firework recipe. So in this case, adding 2 gunpowder gives you a flight duration of 2, adding 3 gunpowder gives you a flight duration of 3. And that is where any increase to flight duration ends. You can't make flight duration 6 or 7 rockets, it's not possible. I recommend starting with flight duration 1 simply because they are the most versatile. You might want to increase the flight duration of your rockets once you have an adequate supply of gunpowder, but sometimes those longer boost durations can be more of a hindrance than an advantage. Either way, our takeoff from the roof of the storage building is now going to look very different, because once we open our wings, we can right-click to use a firework rocket from our hotbar, and that will boost us into the air. So we're going to leap from this, activate the wings, right-click, and now we are flying. Now we're able to consume these rockets to gain additional height by boosting ourselves upwards, or even gain additional downward speed by boosting ourselves downwards, although that is just going to increase the duration that you can glide. Once you've reached maximum velocity, the firework rocket will not increase your speed any further. But that is really quite a rush, and you can gain a little bit of extra height for a smooth landing. I'll land up here on the cherry trees. And from here, you will note that your perspective on the world is really going to change, because suddenly you'll be looking at things from the top down a lot more. And it is really quite cool seeing these buildings from the top when most of the time I've been looking at them from ground level. Now you'll notice that right there from the top of that tree, I did a very quick takeoff. I didn't need to leap off the side of the tree, I simply rocketed into the air. And you can't do that just by right-clicking. Instead, you need to double tap the spacebar so that you very quickly open your Elytra. It might take a little while to get the timing right on maneuvers like that, but it is a lot more generous than it used to be. It used to be you could only activate your Elytra when you were falling, so when you were coming down from a jump. But in this case, you can basically double tap them, and as you leap, you will end up opening your wings, and you'll be able to take off from a flying position like that very easily. It's just a very quick combination of double tap jump and then right click to use the firework. It's really quite smooth once you get the hang of it. But now we're able to boost ourselves with firework rockets, we also need to be aware of one of the other dangers of flying around like this, which is taking damage on a wall. You can splat headfirst into the side of a wall, and you will take a pretty decent amount of damage, equivalent to falling from a reasonable height. I took 5 hearts of damage there, and that's with protection on my leggings and my helmet, along with blast protection, which doesn't really make much difference on my netherite boots. But in this case, when I'm traveling horizontally like that instead of falling, feather falling is not going to do much to save me. Without my armor protecting me, I almost certainly would have died, splatting my head against the side of the mountain like that. So it's really important to know that hitting a wall whilst you're flying can cause damage that way. And if you're killed by an impact like that, the game will give you a death message that says you experienced kinetic energy, which I've always found pretty funny. But now we're able to fly using firework rockets. That opens up a lot of opportunities for exploration. If I want to see what's on the other side of this mountain, it's only going to take me a firework rocket or two to boost myself over the top, glide down the opposite side, and see what's over here. And I can shift my perspective around using the F5 button by default, or in my case I have it bound to R, and I can really see the landscape around here. And naturally, seeing a kind of bird's eye view of the world is going to be really useful for locating landmarks, like this village, which I actually had no idea was here until I went looking for a pillager outpost recently. The pillager outpost search would have gone a lot faster had I been able to fly around with Elytra at the time. You can also challenge yourself to get maneuverable with your Elytra and navigate around in tight spaces like caves. Like here, I can weave in and out of the pillars of this cave, perhaps not too successfully in that case, but in Java Edition at least, I'm not sure of the status of this on Bedrock Edition, when you hit the water, your wings will remain open, which makes it kind of awkward. You're bobbing along the water like this in first person, but if you go into third person, you'll notice your wings are still open, which means technically you are still in flight mode, and you can simply use a rocket to boost yourself from the surface of the water again. And knowing how to do a water takeoff like this will actually be a really valuable skill if you're exploring large areas of ocean. In fact, the only times your wings will deactivate underwater is if you come to rest on a solid block, at which point you'll resume the upright standing position, and to take off from the water again, you will need to jump from the surface of the water and be able to open your wings by tapping the jump button like so, which can be a little bit tricky to get at first glance. But with a little practice and some spam clicking, you might be able to manage it. Let's have another go at this cave run here. There we go, I can boost myself around the pillars, just a quick reaction to where the obstacles are left and right with the mouse, and we should be able to navigate between these with relative ease. You can make some pretty sharp turns with the Elytra as well, so you can, depending on your mouse sensitivity, turn on a dime in midair and redirect yourself, which once again loses a lot of momentum, so you'll need to rely on some downward momentum, some gliding downwards in order to pick up your speed, or alternatively, boost yourself with a firework again. At this point, when we don't have a reliable source of gunpowder, all of the gunpowder I've acquired so far has simply been from manually killing creepers, usually with a looting sword, so we get a little extra gunpowder, but you'll want to conserve the amount of rockets that you use. You probably don't want to fly around spamming rockets constantly, which you can do. There is no cooldown on using them. So what I recommend doing is using one firework simply to gain height, and then allowing yourself to glide around a little bit. You'll get plenty of momentum from simply gliding downwards and then tilting your wings back upwards to gain a little bit of height, and you can prolong a glide for a really long time and travel the same distance. You won't be moving quite as fast, but you should be able to get away with not using too many fireworks if you are sensible about how you use your glide. Tilt yourself upwards a little bit, and don't boost with a firework unless you need to gain height. At some point next week, we will probably be building a mob farm that can spawn all kinds of regular hostile mobs, and so we'll probably get plenty of gunpowder from the creepers that spawn in that farm. But for the moment, we don't have that in our world yet, so we're going to wait a little while and not use these fireworks too frequently. Now, if we want an alternative to boosting ourselves with fireworks, we can turn back to the Riptide Trident that I made in a previous episode, because with this, we're able to boost ourselves into the air without relying on consumable things like fireworks. It's not raining right now, so we can't take full advantage of the Trident's capabilities, but all we need to do is find a source of water that I can stand in, like the little pool of water that I've been using whenever I need an additional water bucket. If we simply raise our Trident into the air, holding down right-click and boost ourselves, while we're in the air, we can open up our wings, and you'll be able to glide from there. So the waterfalls on the mountain here are actually going to be really useful, because standing in one of those and with my wings open, I can boost myself into the air with the Trident. And of course, the Trident has Unbreaking and Mending on it as well, so it's effectively a renewable source of this boost power. We can find any other water sources that we might be able to spot along the way, and if we want to, we can get another boost into the air, like so, open up our wings, and we are flying once again. We can dip into the water here at our fishing shack, we can boost from underneath the surface even, and you'll notice that if your wings are already open, you get a pretty massive increase in height. The angle at which you take off is also quite important, because you'll probably lose height quite quickly if you go straight up in the air. Let's say, for example, I look straight up from this waterfall on the mountain. Then I should be able to get a decent amount of height, but then my glide is very slow to start, and I don't get a huge amount of acceleration from it. Meanwhile, if I start in roughly the same spot, but I angle myself maybe about 45 degrees upwards like so, there we go. The forward momentum really helps with the glide, and at this point, I should be able to travel a lot further because I'm not having to react to the height I'm at and increase my glide angle from there. I am actually hoping that it rains at some point during this video, though. For once, I want it to rain, because where this really comes into its own is when rain starts, and you can use Riptide from basically anywhere standing on the ground. In the rain, the Trident and Elytra combination really becomes the fastest way to travel around. It is absurd how quick you can get, to the point where chunks of your world may not even be able to load in front of you because of how fast you're traveling, which presents other problems, especially when there are mountains around you. But you'll notice that from all of this flying around, my Elytra has now taken about a third or maybe a quarter of its durability. It's pretty beat up at this stage. It's definitely going to be usable for the next little while, but we should be careful about how we use it. Of course, that problem goes away more or less immediately if we trade with some of our villagers here, because if we buy some golden carrots from this guy, we're going to get a bunch of XP, and there we go. The Elytra's almost back to full. Now, another thing to know about the Elytra is that the angle at which you are flying changes the height of your hitbox. If I go into third-person mode here and hit F3 and B to enable hitboxes, you'll notice that right now my hitbox is a single block wide and 2 blocks tall. When I go into flight mode, however, we effectively become a single block cube. So the height of our hitbox actually decreases by 1 block. And that means that with precision, we can fit through 1 block gaps like this whilst in flight mode with Elytra. So we're going to give this a try. We're going to back up a little bit, give ourselves a little run up, and we're going to boost ourselves at that hole in the stone ring that I've made and see if we can get through it. Oh, no. Okay, I managed to hit the top there. Let's try that one more time, aiming for the center, and there we go. We passed through second try. Hey, not too bad. With enough practice and little skill, that might allow you to get out of some really tight situations. So it is a skill that is worth bearing in mind. Here's another thing to note while getting out of tight situations is that very often you might find yourself in a cave environment where there are mobs surrounding you on all sides. Let's say down here in this dripstone cave where the deep dark environment is a little bit further down. Chances are around here I'm going to encounter a couple of mobs that are going to come for me pretty quickly. There's a creeper stepping down from these dripstone spikes, and if I need to, this creeper can get a little bit closer, but all I've got to do is make a quick takeoff like so, and you can get out of harm's way pretty quickly. If you've been digging down for whatever reason, or you pillar up and you can see the sky, it's possible to escape from a 1 block wide hole like this simply by looking up, double jumping, and activating your fireworks. And if you are descending into a 1 block wide hole, or dropping any distance really, the Elytra can help you out, because if you are gliding and facing horizontally, despite the fact that it looks really weird when you're in third person mode because most of your player model is effectively in the wall, it's actually possible to descend at a slow enough rate that you're not going to take any full damage once you land. And that can be really useful in the case of things like the skeleton spawner we set up earlier in the season, which is a lot faster to get to by flying there, it turns out. But right here we have our hole in the ground where previously I've just been falling into a water source right at the bottom there. You can kind of see it, this little blue square at the bottom there, and the ladder has been our best way of getting up here. We could have replaced this a while ago with a bubble column that would elevate us to the surface, but for the moment I've just been dropping down into a single source of water, and a fall of this distance would almost certainly kill us if we didn't have this water at the bottom. Even with feather falling, that's a pretty steep drop to take. But now, if we drop on down here and use the Elytra, we can actually control the speed of our descent. Obviously, if you angle yourself upwards or downwards, then that's going to potentially increase your speed, because then you'll either be falling or stalling. But if you simply angle yourself to look horizontally as you fall, you should be able to glide down at a safe enough speed that you won't take a ton of fall damage when you hit the bottom. And conveniently at the bottom here is an XP farm that I can use to repair my Elytra from all of that flying. Oh my goodness, it's happening. It's raining. Okay, I need to get the Trident out, and we can even use the Trident to try and leap out of this hole, see how far we get. This is going to be absolutely incredible if we can do it. Let's activate the wings on the way up. Fly with the Trident a couple more times. Man, it takes 4 pushes with the Trident to get out of here, but now we're able to simply spam Riptide as we travel, and that is so much faster than traveling with fireworks. Oh my goodness. I would almost certainly die if I hit an object like this. It doesn't work in the snow, however, so if you're in mountainous biomes like this, be aware, you'll need to get back out into a biome where it is raining in order to activate Riptide and travel this way again, but my word, that is fast. And you'll notice that the speed at which you travel is not going to affect the durability of the Elytra. It's simply going to be a case of it decreasing every few seconds. And that is absolutely wild amounts of speed. Oh my goodness. Even turning in the air like that, I'm traveling so fast. I think at this point you'd need to be more aware of the durability of your Riptide Trident than you would the durability of your Elytra, although as I said, it's important to make sure that the terrain is loading in front of you so you know you're not going to hit a wall at such high speeds. Oh, so fun though. It's like being on a roller coaster. But the sun is setting and mobs are going to come out fairly soon, so I should probably go to sleep. Fun though the rain is, we're going to have to wait for it to occur another time. Now we've covered the majority of what you need to know about flying with Elytra, but interestingly enough, flying is not the only advantage that the Elytra conveys to you, because you'll notice if you're a spam jumper like I am that you sometimes open up your Elytra and get this little kind of dip as you move. It sort of increases the bounce of your jump. If you're somebody like me who often jumps around just kind of holding down the spacebar to gain an additional burst of speed, which is a little bit faster than sprinting. It's why you see me do it so often in these videos. You'll notice that if you occasionally rhythmically press the jump button, you can gain a little extra momentum using Elytra, and that is actually slightly faster than just jumping and sprinting. Occasionally you'll hit a weird bit of landscape where you pause and jump upwards and lose a little bit of that momentum, but it's nice and easy to gain it back. And so in that way, you can actually use your Elytra in a very subtle way as you're traveling, and while it might make a few people seasick, so apologies if it happens too much in these videos, it is a really neat way of getting some use of your Elytra without needing to boost yourself using fireworks. But the other noteworthy thing really comes back to what I was saying earlier about using the Elytra decreasing the height of our player hitbox, because using Elytra, it is possible to activate them mid-air and crawl underneath a block like this. If you simply double tap jump so that you end up in a flying position, you'll end up crawling underneath a row of blocks that's only one block off the ground. Now, it is possible to do this without Elytra in a variety of ways, and hopefully I should be able to demonstrate here with this piston. So if I press this button when the piston is right in front of me, it's going to push me backwards. But if there is a block behind me like this when the piston activates, it will actually push me down into that crawling position, and I can quickly crawl under here before the piston retracts and I was able to stand up again. You can also do this by using trapdoors, and it's a technique I haven't done much in the series so far. By opening up a trapdoor like this so it's placed vertically against the side of a block and then standing in that block space and closing it on yourself, you'll be forced down into this crawling position. But it is possible to do that literally on the fly, as it were, by using your Elytra, simply by double tapping space and crawling underneath this. And that makes it possible to crawl into one block high spaces in caves and elsewhere in your base if you want to tinker with redstone contraptions that are tightly put together. You can ender pearl into some of those spaces as well. So that's another option if you don't have Elytra, but once you do, it's a very convenient way of getting into those spaces. In fact, in the past, some players have even made one block high bases where you simply crawl around a series of tunnels to activate things like crafting, storage, your enchanting setup, stuff like that. If you want to crawl around some air vents, John McClane style, then you can do that using Elytra, or alternatively by using trapdoors and whatnot, but the Elytra makes it a little smoother. One final thing to bear in mind, which is a difference that I've noted between Bedrock and Java Edition. On Bedrock Edition, when you're flying around using your Elytra, you can tap jump while in the air again to disengage your Elytra, fall out of the air, and then simply tap jump again to re-engage them. And that's not possible on Java Edition. I'm spamming my jump button right now, I'm just hitting spacebar over and over again, and nothing is happening. However, Java Edition recently gained the ability to hot swap armor in and out of your equipment by right-clicking it from the hotbar, and that way we can swap to my diamond armor mid-air, lose a little bit of height, and then swap back to the Elytra, reactivate the wings, and glide. Now that's a pretty dangerous trick to pull off, because if you swap to the armor and don't successfully swap back to your Elytra, you're going to be taking some fall damage. Unfortunately, feather falling and protection is really helping me to avoid that. But if you want to stay a little bit maneuverable with your Elytra and really get into some advanced flying, that is one other technique you can consider. A little bit easier on Bedrock than it is on Java. On Java, you've got to have the armor on your hotbar and everything, but it is worth knowing. And also having that hot swap is a really nice way of being able to swap in and out of a chest plate and Elytra when you need a little bit more combat readiness. By having your Elytra on your hotbar, it makes you ready for a quick getaway basically any time. So that's a fun thing to play around with. But folks, I think we've tinkered with the Elytra enough for today. Let me know if there's anything that you do with Elytra that I've missed out of this video, and maybe we can do another video in future revising some of these techniques and seeing what else we've learned in the meantime. But that's about it from me. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs, Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.